In today's episode, I'll be giving my picks and predictions for UFC 318 taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana, with a main event of the BMF, the baddest motherfucker in the UFC. Max Holloway, the number 5th ranked lightweight, fights Dustin Poirier, the number 6th ranked lightweight in the UFC. Dustin Poirier's retirement fight for the BMF belt. Let's get right into UFC 318. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the Dubcast. Before we start with UFC 318, we have to start with UFC 317. Now, guys, traditionally on the channel, I'm able to always give you a couple picks. Even I had a good parlay here. We were 1-4 on the picks. Overall record of 31-45. I can give you the whole unit spiel about how, I have the plus odds and we've probably made money. I'm not going to do it. Hand up, I've been really bad betting UFC. I bet UFC Nashville last weekend. Went 0 for 2. Was thinking about betting Derek Lewis. Didn't do it. I'm cold right now. I'm cold, but we're here today to reclaim the heat. This is kind of a weak card, UFC 318, but I don't know. We're here to reclaim the heat. Let's make some money. We got 14 fights. Let's do it. Before that, we're in UFC 317. Okay, so we're 1-4 on the picks, 31-45 overall. Womp womp. We'll improve that though. So starting the prelims, we had Terrence McKinney. Dog. I can't believe this guy's never went to a decision. He's only had early finishes. Either way, good for him. My man, Hyder Emil, bro. What a sell. Good for Jose Miguel Delgado. Early finish. Hyder, I don't know what's wrong with you, bro. I will say, for context, during this card, I was drinking. I was on... I'm not giving excuses. This is a bad card. We were trying to find underdogs. Only one underdog won, which we'll get to in a second. My man, Jack Hermansson. Sell. Immediate sell as well. Gets destroyed by RoboCop. RoboCop, who couldn't make it to the 4th round against fucking Cannonier, just reams Hermansson. Okay. Peyton Talbot. We're spamming the anti-Peyton Talbot because he blew the bag when he was like minus 700. Of course, he gets an upset win over Felipe Lima. Good job, bro. The only underdog on the card to win. So Peyton Talbot is back, I guess. And then Money Moicano sells as well. Just a super boring fight. Good for Dariush. He wanted this fight, or he had this fight before, and he got it. And, Moicano wasn't really a threat outside like the first 2 minutes in round 1. It was a really frustrating night for your boy. Continuing on, we had this absurd fight of the year between Van and Royval. Love that fight. Probably top 2 fights of the year, maybe one, just because it wasn't a title fight. But I still think, a good scrap's a good scrap. Them boys were throwing heat for flyweight. Flyweight is back. Unfortunately, though, we did have Royval, and he lost. I think there is an argument you can make for Royval, but, Joshua Van won the fight. Good for him. He's going to face off against Pantoja soon. That's amazing. Joshua Van has really transcended the sport. I respect him fighting so often when a lot of these guys don't want to get in there. Joshua Van's fought like 5 times in this year, like just this year. So utmost respect for Joshua Van and for Royval. They both got paid out. Royval got a bonus, so that's awesome for him. The title fight, co-main event, we had Pantoja over Kai. That's the only thing Cara France. That's the only thing I really had that right. I feel like Pantoja is just free money, especially when he's never like over like minus 250 as a favorite. I'm curious to see his odds versus Joshua Van, but I'm probably going to be taking Pantoja again. I think Pantoja is going to creep up on Mighty Mouse and eventually become maybe the GOAT, or at least in consideration for the GOAT of the flyweight division. Just an absurd fight. Obviously submits Kai in the 3rd round. Kai Cara France, see ya, bud. Go fight Manel Cop. I don't know. And then, of course, the most rising superstar in the UFC of the main event of UFC 317, we had Ilia Topuria. He said he was going to knock out Charles. He apologized to him before. He had a celebration for his win the night before, and he knocks this dude out in 2.5 minutes. Like, Ilya is insane. There's the McGregor comps. I don't know if we're there yet, but this dude is taking over the sport, and we need to get this guy in the ring as much as possible. He's not taking damage into these fights. Like, I mean, Holloway, maybe we'll talk about the one with Holloway, but like that was what early round 3, maybe he took a little bit of damage, and then he's back in 8 months. Like, I know he abandoned the weight class. Islam's being a bitch and doesn't want to fight him. But come on, dude. We need Ilya. We should have Ilya cards like 3 times a year. If he's knocking people out in a half a second, why not? And there were a lot of aura TikToks for Charles. I do feel bad for the Charles fans. I like Charles, but I'm sure he'll have some fun fights coming up as well. But Ilya Tapir reigns supreme in the lightweight division, and the UFC told him, don't go up to welterweight, bro, because Islam's there. Islam's running from Ilya, bro. This is the super fight now because John Jones retired. This is the number 1 fight you can make in the UFC is Islam versus Ilya. Granted, they're both international, but there's really no Americans left in the UFC to think about. I mean, the only American champion is Kayla Harrison. Are we going to have Kayla Harrison White House card? Like, I don't know. But yeah, so that was UFC 317. Just a pitiful performance for me. I apologize. I don't think a lot of you guys are actually taking my bets, but if you are, I do apologize for what I'm putting out there, and we're going to try and get better this time around. Like I mentioned, usually with Shane, we go over some of the cards, because he watches every week, but unfortunately Shane was not able to join us today, as you can see. Actually, Shane's right here, guys. No, he's not going to be here today, but UFC Nashville, Derek Lewis, thought that was an early stoppage, but I guess you're not allowed to grab the cage, so hand up, I was wrong on that. And then Bonfim got Thompson, so good job. Those were the only 2 really fights that piqued my interest. Calvin Kattar, it's time to quit, bro, and he's a Methuen Mass guy. Yeah, it might be time to hang up the cleats, Calvin. Yeah. Future cards, we got an announcement of Imavov versus Baralho. That should be a really fun fight. Don't know who I'll pick for that, but that's going to be in UFC Paris. Other than that, we haven't had much on the UFC front. Everyone had a nice 4th of July weekend. No UFC on the 4th of July. Only 1 fight night in between. So, we'll see what happens in the summer. I'm still looking forward to the August card when I'm going to bet the house on Dricus, which we'll get to if the fight actually materializes. I'm worried Khamzat's going to pull out, but nonetheless, we've made it to UFC 318. A stacked card, man. I actually have to pull up right now if these fights got canceled. I forgot to do this. I deleted Twitter, unfortunately, guys. I don't want to be like, I don't want to preach my narratives, but I got rid of Twitter. My life's been a lot better. People don't believe that. It's fine. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Looks like we're here. Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 14 fights, guys. So all of them are on track to happen. I'm sure with 14 fights in the UFC card, at least 2 will be canceled, but we're going to analyze them all because we don't know which ones will be canceled. So obviously, UFC 318 is taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana, the hometown of Dustin Poirier. Then we're going to New Orleans for Dustin. I forgot to pull up my banner for you. This. Okay, sorry guys. Anyways, yeah, New Orleans should be fun. I'm curious to see what the fight culture is in New Orleans. I feel like every UFC event, Dana's like, we sold out. The gate was 17 million thousand. Okay, buddy. Like, no one cares about pay-per-view anymore. Nonetheless, though, let's get right into these cards, or get right into these fights, starting with the early prelims. The first fight of the night is in the women's flyweight division. We have Carli Judice, a minus 345 favorite, versus Nicolle Caliari, who's at plus 275 underdog. So we have not covered either of these ladies on the pod so far. Going into Carli Judice career, she's 1-2 in the UFC. She joined in 2023, so hasn't been here for a while. Most recently was knocked out by Duban. These women that outside the rankings, women's fights, I just couldn't tell you much what's going on. All 4 of Carli's career wins are via knockout, though. And both of her losses were via split decision. So she puts up a good fight. If it goes to a decision, her opponent, the underdog, Nicolle Caliari, she joined the UFC in January of this year, losing a split decision to Ernesta Caracate. And she has a win in the Dana White Contender Series. 5 of her 8 wins come via knockout, the rest via submission. So, I've traditionally said I don't really bet the first fight of the night. I'm actually never really watching the first fight of the night, and I can guarantee that I probably won't be watching this fight. But 2 women with knockout power, this could get interesting. First fight of the night in the flyweight division. So with Caliari's losses, she has 2 decision losses and 1 submission loss. So I don't know. This one kind of screams decision to me, but I'm not touching it because first fight of the night, we don't touch those. So the picks here, I don't love anything in this fight. First fight of the night, Both are early in their UFC career. Both are not great so far in what we've seen from them. I don't know anyone on either of their resumes. I'm not touching anything on this fight. We'll keep it moving to the next fight on the night. Surprised to see my boy Bruno Ferreira here in the second fight of the night. Middleweight division, he is a minus 550 favorite facing off against Jackson McVey, who is plus 410. Obviously, Jackson McVey, well, not obviously, but Jackson McVey was supposed to fight UFC International Fight Week. The other guy got pulled and cut from the UFC, so here he is facing off against Bruno Ferreira. With Bruno Ferreira, we've actually covered him twice before in the UFC 308 and UFC 313 videos, where he most recently got a submission win over Armen Petrosian. I remember especially me, was jumping on that Bruno Ferreira money line, and he pulled it off against Armen. And Armen Petrosian got cut from the UFC, unfortunately. But, I thought Bruno looked good as an underdog in that fight. He's always got that scrap. I remember in UFC 308, I believe he put up a good fight as well. He has decent wins on his resume. Most of his wins come via submission. Both losses have been both losses have been via early stoppage. He's never had a fight go the distance. Another one of these guys who doesn't know how to fight go the distance. That's crazy to me. But his opponent, Jackson McVey, we covered him last time, but we'll cover him again. First fight in the UFC, coming from LFA and Shamrock FC. So I don't rank these guys highly. Just joined the UFC, especially. I don't think Vegas does either. Putting him at plus 410 against Bruno Ferreira is a good fighter. So McVey has 3 wins via knockout, 3 wins via submission, and he has never lost. So we have an undefeated fighter in the building here, Jackson McVey. The picks here, it's minus 550, super lopsided odds. So you'd expect, a new UFC contender's odds to be like this against someone who's actually like a UFC vet like Ferreira. This is kind of a weird fight to make. I don't know what the matchmakers are doing on this one, but on the money line, I'm just going to leave it alone. Obviously, I've learned my lesson. I'm not taking anything over maybe minus 350 is the max I would go. So minus 550, I'm not touching that. It would be hard to predict how Ferreira gets this done, particularly because McVey has never lost a fight. My guess would be submission, but being a minus 550 favorite, I'm sure those odds are not great. So we're going to be leaving this one as well. We're not touching this fight as well. Next fight, heavyweight. We have Ryan Spann at minus 238 facing off against Lukasz Brzeski. So Ryan Spann, we've actually covered on the channel before in the UFC 307 podcast, where he got a submission win over Vince St. Preux, the man who is 50 years old. Since then, he has lost a knockout to our boy on this channel, Waldo Cortez Acosta, in March of 2025. We took Waldo at UFC 316, and he got a win. It was sketchy, but he did it. So Ryan Spann, he's only won one of his last 5 fights. It's the heavyweight division. We're kind of needing some sparks here. Most of his wins come via submission, and he does mix in the knockouts and decision wins. Most losses end early via knockout and submission. So his opponent, Lukasz Brzeski, we covered him in the UFC 304 and UFC 310 videos, where he most recently got knocked out by Kennedy Nzechukwu. And Kennedy, bro, what happened to Kennedy at UFC Nashville? That pissed me off. But don't really recall what happened in that fight, but I thought Kennedy was looking pretty raw at heavyweight, to be honest. I don't know. He was looking like he pulled up a couple wins in a row. Guess he's not that good. I guess so that just makes me rank Brzeski even lower. So, how we mentioned Spann has only won one of his last 5 fights. Brzeski has won only one of his last 6 fights. And that win was over Walter Walker. 2/3 of his wins come via knockout. He has 1 submission win, and most of his losses are via knockout. So the picks here, I'm rolling with Ryan Spann. Can definitely see why he's a favorite, as they both have been somewhat cold. Cold streaks, 1-5 and 1-6. I do trust Spann's wins a lot more than I trust Brzeski's wins. I just think it's more likely that Spann gets the knockout win over Brzeski here, and I'm saying first round, easy money. So we're going to take Spann money line and Spann and Brzeski to go under 1.5. We'll put those in some parlays later. Moving down the card, we have a light heavyweight bout between Jimmy Crute and Marcin Prachnio. So Jimmy Crute, we covered him in the UFC 312 video in Australia, I think they were in, where he fought to a draw against Rodolfo Bellato. I think that's the guy who fought Paul Craig, so that guy's kind of a bitch, but I don't remember too much about this fight. I wasn't impressed either way. I thought this was a pretty boring fight. I remember not being I'm not touching this fight either way. He has been 0-3-2 in his last 5 fights, and yet here he is at a minus 325 underdog. He does have some decent wins. Most wins come via early finish. All of his losses have been split between knockout and submission losses. His opponent, the underdog, Marcin Prachnio, we covered him in the UFC 304 video where he took a submission loss to Modestas Bukauskas. Modestas Bukauskas is a pretty game fighter, so it's a respectable loss. Don't remember much about that fight happening, though. Most of his wins come via knockout. Only one submission win. He does have some decision wins, and when he's lost, it's been mostly early. He's 2-3 in his last 5 fights. So the picks here, I can't trust Crute in this spot, and the odds have like ballooned, like minus 325. That feels pretty high. But Prachnio isn't popping off as much as I wanted to. Like I was looking for an underdog, and we'll get into it, but I was literally scrapping for an underdog. And if there is one I'm going to take, it would probably be Prachnio, but I'm not doing it because it's just his numbers and resume isn't popping out to me. I can't trust either side in this fight, but I do like the under 2.5 at minus 60 here. I think they're going to, Crute was boring as fuck in his last fight. Prachnio is like prone to either do some shit or get some shit done to him. We're taking the under 2.5 minus 160. Let's go, boys and girls. Moving on, welterweight. We have last fight of the early prelims. Adam Fugitt at plus 455 faces off against Islam Dulatov. So we haven't covered either of these guys in the channel. Adam Fugitt has been in the UFC since 2022. He's been 2-2 in his 4 fights within the UFC. He did beat Josh Quinlan, so good for you. But he has lost to Mike Malott and Michael Morales. Two of the, Michael Morales has really moved up the welterweight ranks, and Mike Malott is like a pretty game fighter as well. So pretty good losses for Adam Fugitt, to be honest. 5 of his 10 wins come via knockout, so half. 3 submission wins and 2 decision wins. Half of his losses come via knockout. He does have 1 submission and 1 decision loss each as well. Islam Dulatov is a Dana White Contender Series guy, so we don't really know much about him either, but Vegas loves him at minus 625. He's only been in the UFC, promoted Dana White Contender Series, so this is his first official UFC fight. He did win a knockout in October of 2024. 7 of his 11 wins come via knockout, 4 wins via submission. He has never won a decision. His only loss is via a decision in 2019, the first professional fight of his career. The picks here, most likely going to be a Dulatov victory, but it's pretty hard to predict when he hasn't fought in the UFC before. The odds are super inflated on Dulatov, and Fugitt's resume doesn't have me looking interested in him as an underdog either at almost plus 500. Until Dulatov gets some UFC experience, I'm going to stay away from him, and also I'm going to stay away from this one as well. So, early prelims have not been successful in, finding some bets here, but we'll keep it moving to the regular prelims. Middleweight, more lopsided odds fights. We have Ateba Gautier at minus 550 facing off against Robert Valentin at plus 410. Now, Ateba Gautier, he's been in the UFC since March of this year, so only 4 months within the UFC. He knocked out Jose Daniel Medina. He did have another win over Yura Naito in the Dana White Contender Series. 6 of his 7 wins have come via knockout, 1 win via decision. His only loss was via decision in his second professional fight in 2022. Robert Valentin, the big underdog. He's been in the UFC since August of 2024. He lost to Ryan Loder. He also has a split decision loss to Torres Finney in April of 2025. I think a lot of us UFC casuals even know about that one where there was like actually nothing done in that fight. I don't remember that being Robert Valentin, but I remember Torres Finney getting that win. That's pretty funny. So 7 of Robert's wins have come via submission, and he has 3 knockout wins and 1 decision win. Losses, he's been knocked out twice, subbed once, and also lost 2 decisions. Another one that's super lopsided, man. Doesn't have me too eager to bet on either side here. However, I think there could be some merit with Gautier via KO. I wrote this before I saw that was minus 500. So yeah, there's nothing here. And Valentin does have a chin that seems to be like a KO'd, but I'm not adding these fucking fucked odds to my parlay. So we're not touching this one either. Moving down the card, welterweight, we have Francisco Prado versus Nicolle Verentennikov. Prado is minus 142. Nicolle is plus 125. So Francisco Prado, we covered him in the UFC 312 video. He took a decision loss to the man, the myth, the legend, Jake Matthews, who I also should have been on last weekend at UFC Nashville, but we didn't do it. So let's get over this. Jake Matthews, decision legend, even though he pulled a sub off last weekend. Nonetheless, vintage Jake Matthews, and what I remember from this fight, yeah, this was the UFC card. I was like, I have Jake Matthews. He just won all 3 rounds. Prado didn't look competitive at all. And Prado, all of his wins are evenly split between knockout and submission. All of his losses are via decision. He's been pretty shaky within the UFC, losing to all relevant names. So doesn't give me the best feeling going in. But his opponent, Nicolle, has been in the UFC since 2024. He's lost both fights. He's been in the UFC, guys. Like, let's pick up on trends here. These people who are coming in from outside the UFC are not good at fighting. And at least before they have to take their scraps in the UFC. Like, anyways, in his other promotions, 9 wins via knockout. Holy shit, you're knocking out tomato cans, brother. 2 wins via decision, 1 win via submission, 3 losses via decision, 2 losses via knockout, 1 loss via submission. So honestly, this is a very tough fight to pick. Nikolay, has lost 2 fights, but he could come out there looking pretty good. I don't think these fighters are, going to be UFC champions any day in the future. My gut leans to pick Prado here. So he has more experience and should be able to overpower Nikolay, in my opinion, even like maybe like a 29-28 if it does go to decision. We're going to add that to the parlay. This is one of the closer fights odd-wise, so we'll take the favorite because the favorites always win. I trust Prado a little bit more in this spot. Now we get to some relevant names. No offense to other guys, I just don't know much about you and girls. Here we go. Martin Vettori is number 10 in the middleweight division, facing off against number 11 Brendan Allen. Martin is an underdog, plus 164. Brendan Allen, minus 198. So Martin Vettori, we actually have never covered him on the channel. He's only been to the Apex in the past 3 years. He joined the UFC in 2016. He's beat Jack Hermansson, Kevin Holland, who we'll talk about later, Paulo Costa, who we'll talk about later, Roman Dolidze. He's lost to Izzy twice, Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, and Roman Dolidze. So split versus Dolidze. 9 of his 19 wins come via submission. He only has 1 submission win in the UFC, 8 wins via decision, and 2 wins via knockout. All of his losses have come via knockout. He's never been chinned. Okay, I think I meant to say that all losses have come via decision. He's never been chinned or subbed. So he's a distance man. He's an Iron Man. Brendan Allen, he joined the UFC in 2019. He's beat Kevin Holland, Kyle Dawkins, Sam Alvey, Bruno Silva, Paul Craig, and Chris Curtis. So, he's gone against some wily vets. He's done it. He has lost to Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis as well. So he's split against him, Imavov, and Anthony Hernandez. Imavov, is number 1 contender right now, but after Khamzat, he's fighting again because, people are just sitting out and we should actually have these guys fighting. So good job. But yeah, Brendan Allen's, fought some guys. Strickland fought for the belt twice. Imavov's going to fight for the belt soon. So 14 of his 24 wins, he's a submission artist, have come via submission. 5 wins via knockout, 5 wins via decision. 4 of his last 5 wins have come via submission. When he loses, 4 have been by decision. His last 2 losses his last 2 fights in general were decision losses. He's been knocked out twice and submitted once. I think this is going to be a super interesting fight. I think Vettori is a pretty boring fighter, but Brendan Allen maybe will mix it up and take him down a bunch of times. I do give the slight upper hand to Brendan Allen here, although Vettori does have slightly better wins on his resume. It just feels like this one's destined to go the distance, and that could easily help Allen, who will be attempting submissions and likely take this fight to the ground. I just can't trust Vettori to get this done. I don't really grade him that high as a fighter. This is a lock to go the distance as well. So we're taking to go the distance. It's minus 295, but we'll throw it into a parlay. And then Brendan Allen money line minus 198. We'll throw that into a parlay as well. So some bets from that fight. Last fight of the prelims is a bantamweight fight between Kyler Phillips, the number 12th ranked bantamweight, facing off against number 15th ranked Vinicius Oliveira. Vinicius is a minus 148 favorite, and Kyler is plus 124. So Kyler Phillips, he's been in the UFC since 2020, the turn of the decade. He's got wins over Song Yadong, Raoni Barcelos, and Pedro Munoz. So 3, decent UFC vets. He did take a loss to Rob Font, who, Rob Font made me some money a couple months ago, so we folk with Rob Font. 5 wins via decision, 5 wins via knockout, 2 submission wins. His last 2 wins have come via decision. He's never been chinned or submitted. He's only lost 3 decisions in his 3 losses. His opponent, Vinicius Oliveira, we covered him in the UFC 303 video where he got a unanimous decision win over Ricky Simon. What was even UFC 303? Was that that was the Pereira? Yeah, I was not watching this fight. He got a decision win over Ricky Simon, though. Since then, he's picked up a decision win over Said Nurmagomedov in February. I watched that fight. He looked pretty good in that. That was Abu Dhabi. Said is Said. It felt like Said wasn't really, there, but Vinicius did the thing, man. He won the fight, so he looked pretty good there. Most of Vinicius' wins have come via knockout, although his last 2 wins have been via decision. 5-fight win streak for Vinicius, and he's been knocked out 3 times in his career. this should be, a pretty fun fight. Like, I think Kyler Phillips makes fun fights. So does Vinicius. So I think this is gonna be one of the highlights of the night. I have to ride the hot hand in this one though, and I'm taking Oliveira. I think it's gonna be like a war that goes the distance. Some fights are just setups, and I feel like both have won some good fights over UFC vets. I do think this one does go the distance, which Phillips has never been chinned. So I'm taking Vinicius. I think he gets it done either 29-28 or 30. Well, there's no other way to do it, either 30-27 or 29-28. But I like Vinicius, man. He looks pretty good, and I'm gonna ride. That's one of my things that I got to pick up on is like if a guy's hot, he's gonna keep winning. That's the UFC. That's how you ascend. He just got into the rankings. He can beat Kyler Phillips. So we're taking Vinicius Oliveira. Now for the main card. Finally enough with the prelims. And, some of the last two prelim fights, I think are going to be better than the next 3 fights we talk about, at least. Anyways, we're going to talk about them anyways. Starting the main card off, we have Michael Johnson versus Daniel Zellhuber. Gotta love this fifth. I feel like they hate this fifth spot where you have like Benoit Saint Denis at like minus 1,400 and whatever card that was. It's like, guys, this is the start of the main card. People are just paying like $100 to see this, and they're going to tune in and watch 40-year-old Michael Johnson at plus 425 against Daniel Zellhuber. I get the logic where it's like Zellhuber might knock him out. It's like, dude, come on, get a grip here, guys. Michael Johnson, he's been in the UFC since 2020, which is actually surprising because, some people call him Unk, some people say he's old. I don't know, man, but I've actually never watched a Michael Johnson fight, I don't think. So he's done it all, man. He's beat Tony Ferguson, Edson Barboza, Dustin Poirier, Andre Fili. He has lost to Beneil Dariush, Nate Diaz, Khabib, Justin Gaethje, Elkins, Emmett, Thiago Moises, Clay Guida, Malarkey, and Diego Ferreira. That's not a shade on Diego Ferreira. I'm just saying some of these losses are a little bit suspect. You're losing Clay Guida and Darren Elkins. Just saying, man. 12 of his wins are come via decision, 10 wins via knockout, 2 wins via submission, 4 of his last 6 wins are via decision. He has been submitted 9 times, losing 7 decisions, and also been knocked out 3 times. So that's a total of 19 losses, guys. And this is who we're starting out the main card with. I digress. Daniel Zellhuber. We covered him in the UFC 306 video where he took a split decision loss to Esteban Ribovics. Crazy fight, epic war. This was like the fight of the year then. This was last September. Like, this was such a great fight to watch where we had a friend watching with us who's like, the UFC sucks. And then these boys just throw down. Zellhuber got the bad end of that stick, but this is why they set him up with Michael Johnson to give him a free win. About half of Zellhuber's wins come via knockout. He doesn't have one in the UFC yet, though. He does have a submission win in the UFC, but 5 of his last 6 fights have gone the distance. Not the most impressive resume, but you're fighting against 40-year-old Michael Johnson, so I understand. I'm sorry, Michael Johnson, if you're watching this. Prove me wrong, bro, because I'm not taking shit in this. Well, we'll get to it, but I'm not taking the money line, so if you win, I don't care. I'll be happy for Michael Johnson if he gets this win because, this is bad. This is bad matchmaking. So the picks here, obviously, this is a setup, in my opinion, for Zellhuber to get the knockout or hopefully get the knockout and definitely to get the win. The odds are way too high for me to want to do something with the money line at almost minus 570 or at minus 575. However, I think this could be a good spot for the over, specifically 1.5. Now, I do keep taking the over in these spots where I'm like, why am I taking the over on these unks? Like Bobby Green, I remember I took that over against Marcio Hufi, and that was a terrible fucking decision. But yeah, we're going to go down the same path. We did it with Jim Miller and Chase Hooper. That worked. I feel like it works out most of the time. So we're taking the over 1.5. Johnson can draw fights out, man. And Zellhuber doesn't have a knockout in the UFC. So those are the 2 factors I'm pending in. And them to go over 1.5 is minus 250. So whatever, man. Parlay piece. Fuck it. We need something on this fight because it's in the main card. Next one, featherweight. Number 12 ranked Dan Ige fights off against UFC newcomer Patricio Pitbull, who got clowned. He didn't get clowned that much, but Patricio, underdog, plus 180. Dan's minus 218. So these guys were both actually in UFC 314. We covered Dan in UFC 308 and UFC 314, where he most recently got that knockout win, controversial, over Sean Woodson early in the 3rd round. Guys, yes, it was controversial. He was winning that fight. He won the first 2 rounds easily. He already won the fight. So I don't really mind. I mean, the stoppage was bad, but he already won the fight. So I don't care about that much. Maybe if the alien Sean Woodson who's freaking 135 pounds and is like 6'5". Anyways, he was dominating that fight. Most of Dan's wins come via knockout, but he can or knockout or decision. So he can mix in submissions as well. His losses have only been via decision. Patricio Pitbull, man. Him and Patchy mix. It's like, send these guys to the fucking sun. They're not winning fights. We covered him in the UFC 314 video. This guy's 38, guys, where he took a decision loss to Yair. He looked completely flat. He looked out of it. I don't know what's like. I think he's from Bellator. I know it's different from Bellator to the UFC, but to tell me, oh, Patricio Pitbull is going to be a good guy in the UFC. Bruh. Sorry. I'm sorry, man. I'm on a tangent. He looked terrible, and Patchy Mix looks terrible. I can't trust or rank these guys until they do well. So it is what it is. But we'll go over Patricio Pitbull's career slightly. He's got mixed in wins with all methods. He can knock you out. He can submit you. He can take you the distance and beat you 29-28. Losses have mostly been via decision. He has also been knocked out and submitted in his career. He does have an illustrious career of fights. That meaning there's just a lot. So yeah, I'm taking Dan, bro. Dan's one of my favorite picks in this card. If you didn't have instant chills and respect for when Dan Ige emerged from the shadows to fight Diego Lopes at UFC 303, which I was just talking about what happened that night, and Chael Sonnen's like, guys, I'm hearing it's going to be Dan Ige. He was in the area training, and he's walking out like this guy was literally fucking sitting in a jacuzzi, and Ortega's like puking his brains out. He comes and fights Diego Lopes. We're taking Dan, bro. I got Dan. One of my favorite picks in this, or maybe I think my favorite pick on this whole fucking card. Patricio looked flat in his first UFC fight. Granted, I do think there's a chance, these guys like him and Patchy come out and all of a sudden they're superstars just because fucking the UFC is like that. But I don't know. I'm taking Dan. And every time I say this is my favorite pick, it always doesn't work out well. So proceed with caution. But I'm spamming and hammering Dan. Yair is a tough opponent. He's got the leg kicks. He's kind of big for the division. Dan's a fucking scrapper though. So I'm thinking maybe he takes a round off Ige and everyone's like, holy shit, Patricio's back. But then Dan like maybe wins a 29-28 sketchy decision or just wins 29-28 outright. I think if this one goes the distance, or I think it is going to go the distance too, because like Patricio Pitbull ain't knocking out shit and he's not going to get knocked out. So we got Dan at -218 and we got this to go the distance, which is -250. This shit pisses me off as we move down the card. Just because Kevin Holland talks during fights and is like interesting, that doesn't mean he gets the third spot when he's a minus. I've never seen Kevin Holland at this high odds. -575 for Kevin Holland, bro. And my respect has gone up for Kevin Holland. I've tried to doubt him a couple of times and he keeps winning. He beat Vicente Luque, who's a pretty good, submission artist or whatever. He beat Gunnar Nelson, took the rib dive against Dolidze, which whatever. UFC 302. He beat Nicolle Lajic. So we've covered him. This is the 5th time we're covering Kevin Holland, which is like crazy because I think we've covered either him or Joshua Van or both the most on the channel. Yeah, I was impressed with the Luque win, bro. And I had Luque before that fight. Holland looks good at welterweight. Maybe you should stay at welterweight and not stop just taking a paycheck every month and getting like decked by these dudes. But I digress. Most of Holland's wins are via early finish. 3 of his last 5 wins are via submission. Actually looks legitimate at welterweight. Losses are mixed in there, but mostly decision. His last 2 losses are via early finish. He had the rib, and then I'm trying to think. Not Venom. I mean, this guy just fights so much that it's hard to predict or hard to analyze. Analyze. Daniel Rodriguez. He's been in the UFC since 2020. Haven't covered him on the channel at a +425 against Kevin Holland. That tells you all you should need to know. He's beat Tim Means, Mike Perry, Preston Parstons, Kevin Lee, Li Jiang Liang, Alex Morono, and Santiago Ponzinibbio. He lost to Nicholas Dalby, Neil Magny, and when I saw the Neil Magny loss, I was like, all right, Kevin Holland's going to smoke this guy. Ian Machado Gary and Kelvin Gastelum. 9 of his 19 wins have come via knockout, only 3 within the UFC, although his last win in May was via knockout. He does have some submissions as well, but only in his first fight in the UFC, 6 decision wins in the career. 3 losses via decision, 1 loss each via knockout submission. This one I have nothing, man. Kevin Holland is -575. Like, Kevin Holland is -575. 4 words. That's all you need to know. I'm not touching shit on this fight. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know how it goes. I don't know how he does it. Kevin Holland will probably win this, but, You know the deal on the big odds. We ain't touching that shit. So we'll move on to the co-main event of the evening. A canceled fight rebooked for the co-main. Now I get it. The cards have to be a little bit weaker, or this card has to be a little bit weaker because we're fighting for a title, but it's not a real title. It's a BMF. It's a bad motherfucker belt. So this is our co-main event, which is like we can just keep recycling Paulo Costa into these. Like I think last July was UFC 302. And we're just recycling, like I think it was June. We're recycling the same, like you had Paulo Costa versus Strickland in the co-main event. You had Poirier versus Islam. It's like we're doing this over again, where Poirier's gonna lose and Paulo Costa's gonna lose. I don't know. This is like, why is Paulo Costa in a co-main event in 2025, bro? Stop doing fight nights every week where you have these random ass fights and make good cards, bro. Cut some of these fighters. Cut people. You do cut people, but like, this shit pisses me off, bro. Nonetheless, Paulo Costa is minus 13th ranked fighter in the middleweight division at plus 185 in this fight. Kopylov is minus 225, number 14th ranked in the middleweight. So Paulo Costa, as mentioned before, we covered in the UFC 302 video, where he somehow got a scorecard against Sean Strickland, even though Strickland, that made me hyped about Strickland, where he's just like walking him down, boom, boom. Like, I don't like Strickland, but that was a cool fight to watch from Sean Strickland. And Paulo Costa didn't do anything in that fight. Most of Paulo's wins are via knockout. He has been knocked out only once. He has lost 4 of his last 5 fights. This is who your co-main event of the evening is, guys. And he pulled out last time against, I think they were supposed to be on International Fight Week. Roman Kopylov, he was also in UFC 302, where he got a split decision win over Cesar Almeida. Since then, apparently he picked up a somewhat controversial win over Chris Curtis. Wasn't able to check that one out. 12 of his 14 wins have come via knockout. He has been to the distance 2 times in the UFC, and he's also been submitted twice in the UFC. The picks, I'm not inspired to take Costa. Like, I'm not taking these guys who just keep losing fights, bro. I fell for that trap. I tried to take him against Strickland, didn't work out, and it's been a year since then. It's been 13 months. He hasn't done shit. He tweets all the time about like porn and shit, or something like meme coin and shit. I don't know. I don't fuck with Paulo Costa anymore. I'm taking Kopylov. I like the prop here. You know, my method prop of taking one fighter to win via knockout, or the method of win to be knockout. I like that here. Plus 165. So, you know, we haven't seen a lot of plus signs tonight. Well, I don't know when you're watching this, but we haven't seen a lot of plus signs in this card. Plus 165, you know, maybe a little sprinkle there. And we're taking Kopylov money line minus 225. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, which, good job. They made this fight. You know, it was so thought about who's going to be Dustin's last opponent before he rides off into the sunset. They did the right thing here. This is going to be an interesting fight, with Max being 9 months out of his knockout loss on it versus Ilya. This is going to be a war. This is going to be a banger. And they fought 3 times. This is the 3rd bout for the baddest motherfucker title. Max Holloway, the number 5th ranked lightweight at minus 135. Dustin, the slight underdog, at plus 114, the number 6th ranked lightweight. The 3rd time they're scrapping. First fight, Poirier submits Max in Max's first fight in the UFC in 2012. Flash forward 7 years later, they fight again. Poirier wins every round, apparently, according to Chael Sonnen on this week's Good Guy, Bad Guy. Or in a unanimous decision win over Max Holloway in 2019. And now the cinema. This is the last time we'll see Dustin Poirier in the ring. And it's going to be a time. So Max Holloway, we covered in the UFC 308 video, where he took a knockout loss to Ilya. We lost some money on that. It's okay. Obviously nothing to be ashamed of. Ilya is a superstar and looks to be one of the greatest fighters of all time. Max was competing. Like, I did have a Max bet place, but I had a Max scorecard. I was like, Max might have won round 1. It might be 1-1 heading into this 3rd round, guys. Yeah. So I have an affinity for Max. I don't know why, because he's kind of cringy at times, but I like Max. And you'll find that out in a bit. But most common method of win for Max is either knockout or decision. He does have 2 submission wins, and he's been knocked out and submitted 1 time each. So he never had been chinned before the Ilya fight. So is that chin open? I don't think so, but we'll get into it. Dustin Poirier, his last fight within the UFC. We covered him in the UFC 302 video, where he took a submission loss to Islam. He fought pretty valiantly. Like, I think at the time people were like, why is he getting a title shot? And then now that's one of those fights where you see it on TikTok with Rock That Body playing in the background. Like, holy shit, Dustin Poirier competed with Islam. Ultimately, Islam is also one of the greats of all time. So it is what it is. Poirier, most of his wins come via knockout. He can mix in some submissions and decisions. When he's lost, it's been a variance of ways, but 3 of his last 4 losses were via submission. So yeah, guys, I'm happy to do it. Like I was gonna play "Shine Bright Like a Diamond," but I don't want to get copyrighted. When that song plays, I might cry. I'm not gonna cry, but I think Poirier loses this fight, bro. This game is not kind to you, and you go out losing. Like, I don't know. John Jones went out winning, but then went out like weirdly. Stipe got fucked up and just dipped the set. Like, it feels like too big of a lead up for Dustin Poirier to beat Max Holloway 3 times, especially when we saw Max's power translated to lightweight, where he knocked out Gaethje. And yes, that is one of the sickest knockouts of all time, Holloway beating Gaethje. But Max Holloway was destroying Gaethje, and that because I focus a lot on these bets that are on these on these fights that I have money on. Justin Gaethje looked like he had nothing for Max at lightweight now, and Gaethje Gaethje knocked out Poirier, so that's like transitive property type shit. I don't want to just do that, I'm taking Max simply for the fact that I don't think careers always end well. And I don't even think Dustin stayed too long. Like, it seems like they're kind of just pushing him to the side. He also said apparently he doesn't want to fight. I actually did talk with Shane today. That was our one conversation. Poirier's done fighting. He doesn't want to be done. Like, his kids want him to be done. Cauliflower ears, I get it. I'm taking Max, bro. Blessed Express. This could be a mistake, and if he gets knocked out, that'll be pretty sad, but I'm taking Max money line. Also, the under 4.5 is plus 130. Like, why are we not jamming that? I don't know. I think Max knocks out Dustin and leaves him on the canvas, bro. Max has been fucking, on his shit. I need to watch the press conference. I need to watch interviews and stuff, but I feel like Max is clocked in regardless. I just feel like this would be fitting for the UFC, where it's like Poirier's last fight, but UFC doesn't do cringe storylines. They're not gonna give him the win over Max. I was willing to take the under at 3.5. It's 4.5. I think either way you look at this fight, there's a very good chance this fight ends in under 4.5 rounds. So yeah, that's my analysis on this main event. Sorry, Dustin. I don't think you got it in you. And, reigning why are we taking a reigning champ at minus 135, man? I know the BMF belt's a joke. And what happens if Dustin wins the BMF belt? Does the BMF belt go with him? BMF belt retired? Okay. So that's the main event, man. And, we have our picks. I've given you some picks throughout. It's time to put these together and make some good parlays. So as always, I will have 5 picks for y'all with the official Dubcast picks for UFC 318. Starting it off with our most egregious one. We have the prelim parlay. We're taking Spann, Prado, Allen, Oliveira, moneyline, plus 510. I have to say, as a bettor who has tried to build a bankroll, one of these fighters will lose. It's just what happens. So maybe take the combo of the different 3. Well, then because you're losing most of those if one of them loses. So just grab this, and then whoever you like the least, just kick them out of it, and you still have pretty good odds. But I'm taking all 4 for the squad, plus 510 odds. Checked it with DraftKings. Next, prelim unders. So I like that Spann Brzeski under 1.5 round. It's crazy. It's a reach, but it's favored and it's heavyweight. So I like that. And then I also like the Crute Prachnio under 2.5. Those two together give you plus 148. So we're making some plus signs there. The distance parlay, a Dubcast classic. We have Vettori and Allen, Phillips and Oliveira, Ige and Pitbull, all to go the distance. All 3 of those together is plus 188. So pretty good odds there. To be happy with the co-main and main event, we're taking Kopylov and we're taking Holloway. Plus 151 together. I love it. Slam it. Last pick is a solo pick, solo dog. I don't have any dogs in this card, guys. I got nothing this time around. I'm sorry. I usually try and find a dog. I couldn't find a dog that was worth barking for. Cringe. Anyways, last one. Holloway and Dustin under 4.5 rounds, plus 130. If it goes the distance, this whole fight card was a waste. I rest my case. So that will wrap up UFC 318. Do you guys agree with my picks or do you disagree? What are you thinking? Mostly this is just about the main event for me. Yeah, mostly main event for me. Some intrigue in the I think the last 2 fights, the prelims are super interesting, and I think the Danny Gay, Patricio. Well, I don't think that's going to be interesting either. So really, it's like the Phillips Vinicius fight, and then Vettori Allen could be interesting, and then Dustin and Max. So that's where I'm at. I think this is a pretty mid card. I think the UFC is kind of lazy with the ones they can be, where they don't have to promote anything or make it actually interesting. Like International Fight Week, they made it interesting because it's International Fight Week, and every time we're in Abu Dhabi, we get fucking oil prints money to get everyone to fight on fight nights. But it's, God forbid, we have a pay-per-view in New Orleans and we put jack shit in the card. Anyways, ran over. So that'll be all on UFC 318, guys. Hopefully Shane will be back with me to discuss UFC 319 and UFC 320. Take my picks. Hopefully we make some money this time. And I'll leave you out with that. As always, be easy, y'all.